It was one of those nights where the forest seemed too quiet, like the whole place was waiting for something. The air was cool, damp, with the scent of pine needles and the faint smoke drifting from our fire, now burned down to a soft orange glow. We'd all gone to bed hours before, worn out from the long hike in when the sound came. A rustling, steady, deliberate, right at the edge of camp. At first I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard Nate unzip his bag, whispering into the dark. "You hear that?" Carla stirred too, sitting up with her hair a mess, eyes wide in the faint firelight. The rustling came again, closer this time, and the bushes shook in a way that made us all freeze. Now, animals in the night aren't unusual. Deer will wander close. Raccoons will nose around for scraps, sometimes even a fox. But this was different. Heavy steps, slow and cautious, like whatever it was knew we were listening. I reached for my flashlight, hesitating before clicking it on. Some part of me didn't want to break the darkness, as if the shadows themselves were safer than seeing what moved inside them. The beam cut through the trees, but it caught nothing, just branches swaying gently, leaves trembling like they'd been disturbed only moments before. "Could be a bear," Carla whispered, though her voice wavered. Nate shook his head. "Too light. Bears don't move like that." The fire popped suddenly, making us all jump, and then the sound came again, rustling, scraping, a low shuffle, this time directly behind my tent. My heart pounded so hard I swear it drowned out everything else. None of us spoke. We just listened, holding our breath, trying to make sense of what we couldn't see. The sound moved in a slow circle around us, brushing against the edge of camp like it was testing boundaries. Every crackle of leaves and snap of a twig felt too loud in the stillness, and none of us dared to break the silence. I gripped the flashlight tighter, sweeping the beam along the ground. The trees, the bushes, nothing, just shadows layered on shadows. Nate crouched by the fire pit, jabbing his stick at the coals until they flared brighter, sending sparks up into the dark. "Whatever it is," he muttered, "I don't like it sneaking around like that." Carla, usually the steady one, pulled her jacket tighter and said, "It's watching us. I can feel it." The firelight threw our faces into sharp relief, eyes wide, jaws tight. I tried to steady myself by thinking of what made sense. Maybe a deer nosing through the brush, or a raccoon bold enough to circle the camp for crumbs. But the way it paced, pausing, then shifting position again, it wasn't like any animal I'd ever heard. It was deliberate. Then came the sound that froze me. 3 sharp knocks, wood against wood, echoing just beyond the tree line. At first, I thought maybe a branch had fallen, but it came again. Knock, 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 clear and purposeful, as though someone or something was signalling. Carla's eyes locked on mine, her voice barely audible. "That wasn't an animal." The forest stayed quiet after that, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. I thought about calling out, but my throat felt too dry to form words. Nate was the first to move, grabbing the camp hatchet and standing with his back to the fire. "All right," he whispered. "Whatever you are, you're not scaring us off." But in truth, we were scared, more than we wanted to admit. The 3 of us sat there in the flickering firelight, the forest pressing in on every side, waiting for whatever came next. Nate's knuckles were white around the handle of the hatchet. Carla had pulled her sleeping bag up around her shoulders as if cloth alone could keep the night at bay. And me, I just kept the flashlight steady, sweeping it back and forth even though my hand was trembling. The woods answered us with silence at first, and that silence was almost worse than the noise. My ears strained so hard I could hear my own pulse thudding. Then, from the left side of camp, the rustling started again, slow, heavy and creeping. I swung the beam toward it, catching only the glint of eyeshine for the briefest instant before it vanished. Not the wide, glowing stare of a deer, nor the sharp glint of a raccoon. This was different. Lower, closer. Carla gasped, clutching my arm, whispering, "You saw that, didn't you?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Nate took a cautious step forward, raising his torch stick higher, trying to force whatever it was back into the open. And then it came. One long, drawn-out breath, like air being pulled between teeth. We all froze. The sound wasn't quite human, but it wasn't the snort of a bear either. It was something in between, close enough to chill the blood. "Hey!" Nate shouted suddenly, his voice cracking against the stillness. "We're not afraid of you." The words sounded braver than they felt. The reply was silence, followed by a sudden, violent shake of the bushes just beyond the reach of our firelight. Branches snapped, leaves flew, and then it stopped dead again, leaving only the faint echo of movement deeper in the trees. Whatever it was, it hadn't left. It was circling, watching. The fire snapped sharply, and all three of us flinched like it had been a gunshot. My flashlight beam quivered across the tree line, trying to catch something, anything that would explain what was out there. The forest gave back nothing but layers of dark. That silence stretched until it felt unbearable, then broke with another rustle, this time much closer. "Behind the tents," Carla whispered, clutching my sleeve so tightly I could feel her nails through the fabric. I swung the light around, my chest tight, and for half a heartbeat I swore I saw a shadow move where no shadow should have been. Just a flicker. Gone before my brain could hold on to it. Nate stepped forward, hatchet raised, his firebrand casting wild shapes across the trees. "Show yourself!" he barked. His voice cracked just enough to betray the fear beneath. No answer came, only another sound. It was subtle at first, like a rhythm in the night air. 2 knocks, a pause, then 2 more, wood against wood, as though someone deep in the trees was answering him. My skin crawled with the realization this wasn't random. Something was responding. The woods fell quiet again, so quiet I could hear the hiss of the fire settling into coals. Then, as if to prove it hadn't gone, a long, dragging scrape echoed from just beyond the tents. It wasn't the shuffle of paws. It wasn't the hoof of a deer. It was something else. Something we couldn't place. Carla's breath hitched. "That's not right," she whispered, and I felt the truth of it in my bones. We weren't alone. We weren't just being watched. We were being tested. Nate tightened his grip on the hatchet and muttered, "If it wants to come closer, it's going to have to come through me." His words sounded brave, but the tremor in his hands told another story. And still, the forest refused to reveal its secret. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, huddled by the fire, eyes darting to every corner of the tree line. The knocks and scrapes had stopped, but the air still felt charged, as though the woods were holding their breath. I kept sweeping the flashlight across the brush, half expecting to find a pair of eyes staring back at me. Nothing, only shadows dancing in the orange glow. Finally, Nate, too stubborn to sit still, marched a few paces beyond the firelight. "I'm not letting something creep around our camp all night," he muttered. I wanted to stop him, but the words stuck in my throat. Carla and I just watched as he pushed through the brush, his firebrand lighting the ground in jerks of red. For a moment, silence, then crash, the sound of branches snapping, leaves thrashing, and Nate shouting in pure shock. We leapt up, my flashlight beam swinging wildly until it caught movement. And there it was, a massive, white-tailed deer, bounding away through the trees, startled as we were. Its hooves hammered the earth, vanishing into the dark with a final rustle that faded into silence. We all exhaled at once, laughter bubbling out of us, shaky and nervous. Nate stumbled back into camp, shaking his head. "All that," he muttered, "and it's a damn deer." But even as we laughed, Carla pointed out something that silenced us again. "What about the knocking?" None of us had an answer. The fire burned lower, and we eventually crawled back into our bags, though sleep never fully came. I lay there listening, waiting, half expecting the woods to speak again, but the night held still. The deer explained the rustling, sure, but the knocks, the strange scraping, those remain a mystery. And that's the thing about the wild. Sometimes it gives. "Yo,